Anin Catherine Digishnakas, Toronto Nadinjava. So I came here today with a really heavy heart. One of our community members, Carrie Lester, who's really integral to a lot of the rallies and opening of people's hearts, minds, and spirits, has passed away. There was a beautiful ceremony vigil at the Native Canadian Centre of Toronto. There's a lot of work that she did, and I'm really inspired by her. I started off going to the churches and the various denominations of churches here in Toronto, really spreading the message that the children that are buried by the residential schools need to be uncovered, and the families need to be a part of the ceremonies. And the amount of aggression that we got from priests and the church clergy 10 years ago, it just made me think, well, if they can do that to us as adults, I'm pretty sure they could be doing the things that they're accused of to children, Native children, in the residential school system. So after Stephen Harper apologized on behalf of Canada, you'd think that a lot of the policies and the procedures that are in this country when it comes to Indigenous people would be looked at and would be ratified so that it would be in tune with the UN Declaration of Indigenous Peoples. But as we know, that has not happened. So currently in the 2018, and I'm speaking from my own experience here, I've done a lot of groundwork to hold chiefs of Ontario accountable in terms of my son who's in state custody. I do not say my son is in care, because he is not in care. He's being ignored, and I've seen the progression of him falling in the cracks. He has now fallen to the point where he has an undiagnosed, not even a mental health disorder, and he is on 20 to 80 milligrams of Seroxyl. I did not have my child to be a guinea pig. Native women did not have children to be meal tickets for lawyers, psychiatrists, judges, child welfare employees, directors, executive directors, and managers. It is a huge child welfare industry going on here. And when an Indigenous mother goes to court, they are silenced. I myself had to sign a crown wardship under severe emotional and physical duress by someone that was supposed to represent me and my needs and my wishes for my children. I did nothing wrong to my children, and I wanted to actually, have a moment of silence for all of the children, regardless if they're Native or not. But specifically, we're here because of Tina Fontaine, and she's really the integral part of why we're here, and as well as International Women's Day. She was not yet fully developed as a woman. She looked a lot younger than she was, like a lot of our women do. And for her to be put up into a hotel, and a child welfare employees, and the director of operations and the executive director that was to oversee to make sure that she was cared for and that she was in the safety there in Winnipeg. Shame on them. Shame! Because they have blood on their hands, as do all of the child welfare companies throughout our country. I went to the Royal York Hotel to speak to the chiefs of Ontario and to the chiefs throughout this country to send them a message to say that they need to work for our people. They need to be there for our people. How can you talk about an Indigenous business district when a lot of our people are facing depression? They're facing intergenerational trauma from their relatives being in residential school, 60 scoop, and now the current millennium scoop. The fact of the matter is, and I'm saying this publicly, I have gone to the Regional Chief Isidore Day. I have sent out letters and I have CC'd him. I have also sent it to the Executive Director, Ken Richard of Native Child and Family Services of Toronto. I've also CC'd Carolyn Bennett, Indigenous Crown Nation worker. I have also sent it to Miss Philpott. I sent it to Jordan's principal. So the focal point has told me from Jordan's principal that they have to get Native Child and Family Services to agree to send my son from an institution to the Tandanaga First Nations Reserve. And the Tandanaga Mohawks are more than willing to receive my son so that he gets culturally appropriate programs and services. So whatever is said in the news that the government is working towards fulfilling their commitments to Indigenous families vis-a-vis Miss Philpott and her department, calling up child welfare agencies, all 100 plus of them throughout Canada, to give them additional funding for prevention and family reunification. That is false. That is false. It is a lie, and I know it through all of my work throughout the 10 years that my son has really failed. He's failing, and it's not his fault. Mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually unbalanced. And the key to his survival, so he doesn't end up a statistic, is his culture. But every step of the way, I have been kiboshed. I am now banned from Native Child and Family Services of Toronto unless I have an appointment. And they say that the truth shall set you free. And I have been speaking my truth, and never will I be quiet until my son and the child welfare system, they are accountable for Tina Fontaine's death, and as well as the police who became in contact with her, where her aunt was reaching out like so many Indigenous families do, only to have her niece killed by the system. And how many others of our Indigenous have died in the penitentiaries and as well as the jail systems. So I'd like to take a moment to really honor Tina Fontaine's spirit, Colton Bushy, because they are, as I said before, they are pivotal as to why we are at this breaking point now, where we have all gathered of all races. This is prophecy we're talking about here. It's not going to be easy, but we will work together to unify, to heal the environment, to heal ourselves through all of the intergenerational trauma that we have faced. Even our guests here from other countries, whatever trauma you have may faced in your country that led you here, we all need to be able to hear each other. Not just hear each other, listen. And that's a skill. That is a skill. The Native people are a very integral part of this country. We have a lot of the answers. You know, all these stereotypical views that people have of us, that we get free money, that we get free education, that we get all this stuff. You know, it is from the blood of my ancestors. And we don't even get the money. Why do you think we have so many people on the streets of Toronto, Winnipeg, Vancouver? We have the Inuit coming to Ottawa and Toronto to get programs and services, yet they are failed. I heard one of the youth that is Inuit. You know, she's speaking about how it's not only the Inuit, it's also the First Nations and the Métis youth that are suffering. I know, I see it. And the money that is given to the agencies, well, when it comes down to it, they need to be working with community members that are facing the oppression. And when somebody calls something out, when they see oppressive behavior, that is not lateral violence. No. It is simply speaking one's truth, and all of the policies and procedures that Native people and Inuit and Métis are supposedly bound by accessing organization programs and services. Well, we need to be able to not come to the table, but be in a circle and be able to hash out a lot of the differences that we have instead of once again being silenced. And the institutional racism that is going on in this city. has to stop. It's a human rights violation. And also, on a greater level,